Okay, so let's go ahead and beat this dead horse. Is the Samsung Galaxy S23 ULTRA even a contender for phone of the year? Let's go ahead and jump in. First things first, I told you so. I made a video where I had the same intro that I told you that the Samsung Galaxy S23 ULTRA was going to be the phone of the year. I'm talking like a good 10 or 11 months ago when I first got my hands on this phone. Initial impressions or first impressions, I just knew that there was no phone that was gonna be dropped in 2023 that could beat this phone. In fact, the closest competitor of the Samsung Galaxy S23 ULTRA, which is of course the iPhone 15 Pro Max, was dropped a whole 8 months after this phone was first launched, and still it lost to the S23 ULTRA. Still, the S23 ULTRA was named Phone of the Year. This phone is so good that people who are big fans of the iPhone, just the iPhone line in general, voted this guy Phone of the Year and still said, well, you know what? The iPhone 15 Pro Max is Phone of the Year too. Just because it was too obvious that the S23 ULTRA would be Phone of the Year, which, you know, if you ask me, I mean, this could be to a certain extent subjective, right? Some people might think both phones are phones of the year, which doesn't make much sense to me. I think you should pick one phone as phone of the year, and the vast majority of the tech community chose the S23 ULTRA as the phone of the year, with reasons, plenty of reasons why this phone is the phone of the year. Now, think about it. This phone dropped 8 months before the iPhone 15 Pro Max dropped. It still beat it, and now we are getting ready for the next iteration of this line. The S24 ULTRA, which is literally a couple weeks away, well, a few weeks away, right? Because this time around, it's been shifted to be announced in January. So mid-January, we're gonna have the successor to this guy here, which is gonna be a better phone. That tells you that the direct competitor, the closest competitor to this phone, which is of course the iPhone 15 Pro Max, like I mentioned, is now going to be 2 generations behind. And of course, we're gonna have to wait for the iPhone 16 Pro Max to try to beat the S23 ULTRA, and if it does, then it has to then try to beat the S24 ULTRA. That is going to be no easy task, given what has leaked about what Samsung implemented on the S24 ULTRA. Now let's go ahead and keep this simple and talk about why this phone is phone of the year. Let's talk design, right? From the get-go, I said that the fact that Samsung went with a display that is half and half, meaning half flat and half curved, was such a genius idea, because then it gets to satisfy people on both sides of the aisle, right? People like myself, personally, I prefer curved displays, not the types that are so curved that, you know, you get those accidental touches all the time. I'm talking curved displays like what we had on the S22 ULTRA, for example, right? But even with that, the display here, the way it's curved here, I'm happy with it. I know people who prefer flat displays, and the way the display is flat here, they're happy with this. So both sides are essentially satisfied. So now, as far as overall design goes, sure, it could be subjective, but I think the vast majority of people out there agree that one thing that is very objective about this design is that it's timeless, it's futuristic, it's modern, it's cool, it's really, really nice. Meaning, even if this is not your favorite design, even if you prefer, you know, maybe the hand that designs, you know, iPhones, for example, you still would show some respect to the design of the S23 ULTRA here. I personally think that Samsung has kind of found its groove, because as you see, it's the same design language compared to what we saw with the S22 ULTRA, right? So they just made some changes but kept the design language. So essentially what Apple is doing, where they found their groove and the design kind of looks the same year after year. So Samsung is likely going to be doing the same thing and just adjusting and making changes to this same design language year after year. The S24 ULTRA, for example, still does look like this, of course, with some physical changes that make, you know, the display flat and things like that, right? But anyways, all of this to say that personally, I think this is the best design that you can find on the phone out there. And I'm saying that personally because I know, again, it's subjective. You will like what you like. I'm gonna like what I like. So design-wise, top notch. That's one of the reasons it's phone of the year. Let's talk display, right? It's a big phone, by the way, 6.8 inches here, you know, Super AMOLED display, support for high refresh rate. It bounces between 1 all the way to 120 hertz, and then you have HDR10 plus support here and so much more. Peak brightness here, 1750 nits, meaning it is insanely bright. There's nowhere you can use this phone and be prompted to squint because you don't see the screen, right? You could be under direct sunlight. You could be sitting on the sun. You'll still be able to see that display because of how bright it is. You do have the punch hole for the selfie camera right in the middle, you know, at the top there, in the middle there, but it does not protrude when you're enjoying content or when you are just navigating, you know, the internet. Whatever you're doing here, it doesn't impact your user experience. The reason I'm highlighting this part is because I'm always gonna, you know, mention the direct competitor to this, which is the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now, it's not necessarily a direct competitor because it's an apple to apple comparison, no pun intended there, but it's simply because when we choose the best of the best, the iPhone 15 Pro Max would typically be the one that comes at the top, right? So I'm highlighting that punch hole because, you know, when it comes down to camera, you have that dynamic island with the iPhone 15 Pro Max that actually plays into your user experience and actually can negatively affect your user experience. It certainly does with my user experience. So here you have something that pretty much plays the least amount of role possible in your user experience. Let's move on to cameras. Cameras on the S23 Ultra, top notch. I don't want to go into the details. I mean, I may highlight maybe a 200 megapixel lens here. You know what? Let's go ahead and just talk about the 10x optical zoom that you have here. You can zoom into things that are so far. I mean, this is just redundant because everyone knows this by now, right? You can use to zoom so far and still be able to retain good and usable quality of the picture. So top level cameras, I don't even want to go into those details. The next thing I want to talk about here is going to be the Samsung S Pen. Again, I don't want to go into these details because, you know, we've covered this in a number of videos, and even the direct competitor does not support a stylus like this phone here does. So this can actually play the role of even the tablet, right? It plays so well into your multitasking or just productivity in general. And that's even a nice segue into performance here. Let's go ahead and talk performance. This is loaded with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 made for Galaxy. Tailor-made for this phone. So it is so intuitive. It's such a powerful chipset that is tailored to optimize this phone as much as possible. And let me tell you this, it does a fantastic job. We are witnessing one of, well, probably the phone that's converted the most amount of people from other companies or from other brands to Samsung. The S23 Ultra, I've gotten people sending me direct messages telling me how much they love the S23 Ultra, talking about how they've been using, I don't know, whether it's a different Android or even iPhone for however many years, and they bought this phone, especially when those deals drop. I'm gonna have some links, by the way. Make sure if you are, you know, in the market for this phone right now to hit up those links. So I say that when they bought this phone here, they didn't know what to expect, and they absolutely love this phone. That's just how good it is. But anyways, when it comes down to performance, it is out of this world. The chipset is super powerful, optimized to work extremely well with the phone. You could do anything you want to do. This is a productivity phone. This is a true pro phone. If the things that you can't do on this phone, you can't do it on any other phone, right? Of course, when it comes down to multitasking, you can use the S Pen, as I mentioned, to boost your productivity. You can split the screen. You can do so many different things with this phone, and it doesn't even feel like there's anything happening to it. There's been hardware upgrade, even on the inside, right? That new cooling chamber, this phone stays cool. It just manages heat extremely well. It does very, very well with heat management. Battery, fantastic battery here. Everything about this phone is amazing. So if we want to keep listing, or if I want to go ahead and just keep listing the things that are good about this phone, I won't stop. So let me just talk about the things that I don't like about this phone. I got nothing. I got nothing. It's very good. Well, it's a big phone. Yeah, it's a big phone. Yeah, it's a big phone. That's all I got. Everything else is good, man. Everything else is good. If you are in the market for this phone, go for it. I want to see what the S24 Ultra does. We'll wait and see, but if you were able to pick up this phone, I would love for you to share what your experience is like using this phone so far in the comment section. I'm going to catch you in the comment section like I always do. Make sure to like this video, by the way. Share if you know anyone who will be interested. Make sure, of course, to subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'm going to catch you in the comment section like I mentioned. I'm also going to catch you in the next video. Up until that next video, of course, as always, stay safe out there.